You're most welcome back. It is time for us to speak to our guest for today. I wanted to say top guest. She's our top guest for our top story this afternoon. Again, this is Hello Nigeria. If you're just tuning in, today is Human Angle Thursday. And to speak to us this afternoon is a young lady who is doing phenomenal things. She has a very impressive CV. But I won't want to bore you yet because, well, you won't be bored. I don't want to excite you yet until I speak to her and then she gets to tell her story herself. Her name is Demilade Adeyemi, and she is the author of No Country for Cold Men. Very interesting title, Demilade. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you for joining us.
All right, first of all, it's your first book.
Yes.
And No Country for Cold Men. Yeah. Why that title?
Because, I mean, I felt like it's a title that's quite clear, but also quite ambiguous. So if you wanted to go from the perspective of the person who has cold skin or, you know, pale skin or whatever, but then as you get into the book, you realize a lot of the characters are cold-hearted as well, for their own, you know, for their own different reasons. So, yeah, I just thought it was something that fit.
Wonderful. I like that. So, cold hearts, cold human beings, and again, with reference to the paleness of the skin. Now, talking about skin color, we didn't know in many areas only what the man has made it to be, whereby people are judged by how they look, people are judged by the color of their skin. At what point did you know that, oh, okay, I'm a bit much more fairer than my friends and counterparts?
That's a good question. And I think it was actually when I was in my teens, because growing up, like I grew up in Nigeria, I live in Nigeria, and my parents were always sort of people that are like, oh, you know, everyone is different, everyone has something that's different. So I didn't realize what exactly my difference was in terms of it being albinism or whatever. So I wasn't so aware of it until when I was older, and I actually thought about it, and I was like, wow, you know, this is something that is happening to me, or something that I'm born with. And then it became an issue for me, but then I learned to overcome it, I guess.
All right. So growing up, what were some of the challenges that you encountered living with albinism? There's several myths flying around, you know, with regards to people living with albinism. So what were some of the challenges you encountered as an individual?
I think for me, it was mainly to do with how other people perceived me. So you get, especially older people, like children don't know anything, so it's not an issue for them. But older people, like you said, with their myths and with their own superstitions and traditions and stuff, treating you differently, not always being so kind, you know, based on what they believe. And you can't necessarily fault them, but it's just ignorance at the end of the day. So it was just problems like that. And then when I was a bit older, then I started having problems within myself because I was like, who am I? You know, am I black? Am I white? What am I? Sort of thing. And then you just learn to, you know, that you are who you are and you have to live your best life.
Did you have any support system?
I mean, I guess I had my family and things, but this was, there was nothing that they could do for me at that time because something I had to accept for myself, you know, despite what everyone else says. So, yeah.
All right. Now, I want to ask a question based on something I read. I was reading about you, and you have quite a fascinating and inspiring story. You spoke about something that happened when you were in primary school. Now, this is talking about myths that people have. We're hoping to challenge stereotypes this afternoon. We're hoping to let people see the other side and hopefully enlighten them to be better, you know, to be better behaved. So tell us about that experience and how that made you feel.
So it was my first day of school ever in life. And my mom dropped me off at this school, and when she dropped me off, you know, everything was fine. She left, and the teacher saw me and didn't know what to do with me, you know, because of, you know, based on her own understanding of what people like myself are. So she puts me in a corner all day, and she doesn't let me play with the other children, and she says I can only eat salt and whatever, all of these weird things. And of course, as a child, you don't really understand what's going on. You just know that, oh, I don't want to be here. I want to be doing something else. Then when my mom came back and my mom saw me in the corner with this bowl of salt, she was like, what is this?
Bowl of salt? So you just had to say
Wait,
that again.
hold on. She gave you a bowl of salt?
Yeah.
And did you actually eat the salt?
No, because I was like, you know, why would anyone want to eat salt? It was just a weird thing. And I don't know, because obviously for a lot of people, they believe that people with albinism aren't human beings, sort of thing. So they don't really know how to interact with you if that's your belief. So, you know, it's just always weird things after weird things. And you're like, I'm a human being. Like, you know, there's nothing that you can do for this person you can't do for me. So it was because of that she was afraid for me to play with the other children. She didn't know what I would eat or what I would do. So she just said I have to sit there with this bowl of salt. So
how did your mom react?
She was understandably very upset about the whole situation because, like, for her as well, it was her first time leaving me somewhere So, she didn't really, she only told me the story like later on, but she didn't know, that's for her why she said that she would never make it an issue for me. She would never want to talk about it like that because she doesn't want me to see myself any different from anyone else. So that was a big motivation behind that.
That's wonderful, and I'm really glad she did that. Now, you're a woman, and I know that one of the things that women or young girls encounter, particularly as we approach teenagehood, every single girl has had to deal with self-esteem issues. Am I beautiful enough for the guys? Or are the guys talking to me, my breasts are not coming out on time, when it's time for puberty? And those things can tend to affect a girl's self-esteem. Now, was your self-esteem affected at any time? You sing to us and you sound like a very confident woman. Even reading your book, very confident. Because I want to know, for people watching out there, you're inspiring them. How did you gain your confidence? Did you have challenges with your self-esteem, and how did you overcome them?
I definitely did have a lot of challenges for a long time. And for me, I overcame them the moment that I realized that I'm Demilade Adeyemi. And obviously that might seem very benign to everyone else because no one else is Demilade Adeyemi. But then when you realize that, you are who you are, and that in itself has power in it because everybody's trying to be someone else, or, everyone's trying to pretend to like things they don't like or to not like things that they do like and whatever. So when you realize that, when you look back on your life and you're like, I've done all these things, I've impacted all of these people, even without doing anything, even just by living your own life, there's so many people who who depend on you, who want to know you, who learn from you. So when you realize that there's power in just being yourself, then there's no reason why you should let anything, even if you don't think you look amazing, even if you don't think anyone else likes you, that in itself is enough reason for you to wake up in the morning every day happy.
Speaking of not thinking if anyone else likes you, I'm very particular about us looking at some of the challenges you've been through because I'm sure there are people watching who can identify similar challenges. Were you at any point feeling like you needed to be accepted among your female counterparts? Did you have to force friendships? And when it was time to date, to be in a relationship, did your skin color...
Let's ask you, are you old enough to date yet? Okay, yes. Are your parents allowed? Is it dating under G or dating in public?
No, they're definitely in wedding fever, so...
Interesting. Okay. So now let's talk about your female friends. Did you have to force female friendships because of your skin color? And did it affect you having to be in a relationship with a man?
I definitely struggled when it came to friendships when I was younger. Like, I had friends, but then I would always feel like, oh, they weren't really my friends. They didn't really like me. They're just being polite. They're just being nice, sort of thing. But then when you actually realize, when you actually think about those friends that you have and see what they're willing to do for you, how much they care about you, then it's almost undeniable to say, oh, they don't really care about me because they always go out of their way to help you. Or even if you feel like you're annoying them, they won't make you feel bad about it and things like that. They just genuinely be there for you. And when it comes to dating, like, I guess, again, as long as you feel like you know what you're doing and you're in control of yourself and you don't feel like you're, being ridiculous or you're giving your time to all of these silly people, then it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So,
all right. Now, another thing about you is that you moved from Nigeria to go to school in the UK. In fact, currently you are at the London School of Economics. I have to say the prestigious London School of Economics. Well done for that one. Now, what was the change like? Do you think that people in the UK are more open, because they usually pride themselves as being a very open society, fair. People are more enlightened in the UK. Was enlightenment and education, did it impact the way that people acted, or do you think, honestly, human beings inside their hearts that are wicked are just the same way they are?
Honestly,
anyway?
they are all wicked. Yeah, I think it was definitely when I moved there for school that I realized, I started having all of these big thoughts and changes and stuff, because that's when you really question yourself. When you're at home, when you're in Nigeria, you're used to it, so you're not really forced to think about things. You're just like, this is how people are, this is how people are. But when you go somewhere completely different and you realize, why are people still like this? You're like, what is going on? So definitely, like, the way that they do things, they're less in your face about it, but they're more forceful, I think, because Nigerians do things sort of harshly, but they're not even thinking about it, So you can't really take it personally. But when someone is doing something sort of passive aggressive, you then are like, wow, this person
and they're
actually
the kings and queens
Yeah.
of passive aggression.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so now let's talk about your writing your book. Okay, what prompted you to write a book, and how that's your first book, right?
Yeah.
What were the things? Now, there are many people who like to write, but they're not able to deal with writer's block. How was the process of you deciding to write a book and then following through it so you actually wrote the book?
It was something, I had the idea first, maybe 5 years ago, but I started writing it then. But then, you know, you sort of feel like, oh, it's never going to go. I mean, at the time, I wanted to do it as a personal project, not even for anyone else. Then you're like, oh, I can't even do this. I don't know what to say. You know, this is just going to be terrible. So I just gave up. And then it wasn't until the beginning of last year now that I was like, you know, this has not gone away. You wanting to do this, so you might as well just start again, do it, and just see how it goes.
So you started again last year?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you finished it ready for publication at the end of last year, because you finished it before 2018 came.
Yeah.
Now, with regards to writing, and you know, Oliver has mentioned writer's block. What tips? What do you think people would take away? So, if I pick up No Country for Cold Men, what do you think would be my feeling after reading the book? Excitement, joy, thinking? Would it make me think, or what do you think people would take away from reading the book?
It'll definitely make you think, but I think it's one of those stories that everyone can relate to. The people who've read it so far, what they're all coming to tell me is like, wow, you know, they see themselves in the book. And my sister, who knows me very well, obviously, she's just like, oh, I can see you on every page of the book. But I think when it comes to writing, if I have any tips, it's definitely write what is true to you, write what you know, because that's the only way you can tell a good story.
Okay. Now, before we let you go, I'd like us to debunk some myths about living with albinism. What are the most popular ones that you've heard and you like to debunk, so we can actually let people, because the sad thing is there's still people who are quite unaware about how people get to live with albinism, what causes it. Some people think, oh, there must be an albino in your family. Maybe your dad is living with albinism. Are any of your parents living with albinism?
I mean, in terms of, it's a genetic thing, so both your parents have to have the genes. In fact, my dad actually has blue eyes. So he's really light skinned and he has blue eyes. So everywhere he goes, people always think that he's not Nigerian, he must be from somewhere else. But in terms of myths, I think probably the two biggest misconceptions are people with albinism are evil and people with albinism are good luck. At the same time, I mean, yeah, I'm definitely not evil. I don't think it's fair to say anyone is evil. I probably have my moments, but I'm definitely not an evil person or an evil creature. And as to whether or not I'm good luck, I mean, in terms of, because people harvest, you know, body parts and things like that. And obviously, that's any person with decent morals wouldn't think of, you know, chopping someone up to do whatever you want to do. But yeah, I have my moments. I probably bring some good luck to people who like me, but I wouldn't ever say that you should do something like that to someone.
Wonderful.
So,
Thank you
so
so
much.
I love, and I hope that, you know, as many people as pick up your book, I know it's going to be entertaining, it's interesting. I love the passion with which you speak about it and people's reactions to it. So I'm really, really looking forward to also hopefully picking it up and reading myself. So No Country for Cold, many people wanted to get a copy. Where can they go to?
It's in bookstores, so like Latana and Terra Culture and places like that. But it's also on Amazon.
Okay, and how can people follow you if they have feedback, questions they want to ask, or they want to find out from you how they can purchase the book?
You can follow me on Instagram, Demi_Adeyemi. You can ask me any questions there.
All right,
so,
Demi_Adeyemi.
Yeah. All right. Any last words you had to say before we wrap up?
I would strongly advise everyone to get a copy of the book to begin with. I think it's definitely worth doing, and it's definitely something that will impact you.
All right. Some people, just before I let you go, some people do not like reading books because they feel, it's a motivational book. I don't want to read motivation. I know someone.
Book,
so let's ask: is it a novel? Is it a motivational book? Is it fiction? You know, is it?
It is fiction. It has a story. So even beyond all of the albino stuff, it has a story behind it, like
so it's
a really
novel.
good story. Yeah, it's a novel.
Okay, brilliant.
So,
for those who don't like to read motivational,
yeah, and it's not
books,
so long. I specifically didn't make it very long, so everyone is convenient to read.
Okay.
But it has a good story as well. So.
Okay,
brilliant.
I'll definitely read it and give you feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Demilade Adeyemi. Wonderful and interesting chat. Thanks for coming on Hello Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, No Country for Cold Men. Add that to your reading list for 2018, as we will here as well.
To enjoy more of these our Ogbonge videos when you just watch, press this button to subscribe on top of our YouTube page. You go love am.